Chinese influence has entangled itself among American elites. Don't be surprised if the American elites get themselves entangled with deadly political shadow wars. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. Something very sus has happened in the US, and the trail leads straight to China. Early last month, the Chinese-American CEO of the shipping company, the Foremost Group, Elaine Chao, was pronounced dead at the age of 50 after her car went into a pond in Texas, which sounds like the beginning of an episode of CSI, or every other procedural crime drama out there. But this isn't just an ordinary woman. Beyond her role as CEO of a powerful shipping company, Chao is the sister-in-law of U.S. Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Her older sister, Elaine Chao, is McConnell's wife, although she's a political figure in her own right. She served as U.S. Secretary of Labor under George W. Bush and U.S. Secretary of Transportation under Donald Trump. McConnell mentioned his sister-in-law's death when he announced last week that he was stepping down as the Republican Senate leader in November. And totally unrelated, the circumstances surrounding Angela's death are pretty suspicious. According to a fire department incident report, authorities were alerted a little after midnight on February 11th. Emergency personnel pulled Angela out of a car that had gone into a pond on a private ranch in Johnson City, Texas. According to the Austin American-Statesman, the property is owned by a trust that shares the same Chicago address as an investment and public equity firm owned by Chao's husband, venture capitalist Jim Breyer. So she was found in a submerged car in a pond on a property that was owned by her husband. But here's where it gets a little wilder. The chief investment officer at the Texas-based asset management firm Hyman Capital Management and independent researcher Kyle Bass claims that Chao was in her Tesla and backed into a pond when she died. If true, it would be strange if she rolled backwards, since Teslas don't roll when they're parked. Also, people don't usually die by drowning in Teslas. It's usually by burning. But here's where things get even more fishy. No, that wasn't a drowning pun. The Blanco County Sheriff's Office initially released a very short statement saying that its preliminary investigation determined Chao's death to be an unfortunate accident, which is already suspicious because they're describing it like the mafia would describe someone being found with concrete shoes in the Hudson River. Clearly, this is just an unfortunate accident. But things soon took a very dark turn. The Blanco County Sheriff's Office later said in a letter to the Texas Attorney General that this incident was not a typical accident. Although the preliminary investigation indicated this was an unfortunate accident, the Sheriff's Office is still investigating this accident as a criminal matter until they have sufficient evidence to rule out criminal activity. In other words, the authorities are investigating if there was foul play behind Chao's death. Okay, so maybe don't call something an accident until the investigation is complete. That's like finding a body with 90 bullet holes and saying, our preliminary investigation has determined this to be a severe whoopsie-daisy. A criminal investigation makes sense, though, especially since it might have involved a Tesla. Have you seen what hackers are capable of doing with those? As big news as Chao's death was, there's a lot of secrecy surrounding it. According to CNBC, since Chao's death remains the subject of a criminal probe, the Blanco County Sheriff's Public Information Officer told the Attorney General that reports, 911 logs, audio and video evidence, as well as other material should not yet be released to media outlets that requested them. But if they don't release it, then how will a teenage detective get to the bottom of this case and solve the mystery the so-called experts couldn't crack? I've been reading a lot of young adult novels, too. Shut up, they're delightful. But according to an Austin attorney who specializes in Texas open record laws, it's concerning that Blanco County didn't promptly make basic information like the identity of the victim, time and place of death available to media outlets without any assertion that its release would actually interfere with any investigation. Even basic information was kept under wraps, while the public statement called it an accident. Then later it suddenly became the subject of a criminal investigation. What exactly is going on here? Chao's family kept their comments about her death to a minimum, saying things like how she acted as a bridge between the East and West, and how the family was devastated with such grief. Not much about how exactly Chao died. There are allegations that the family even blocked an autopsy. I have a lot of questions. Is it a coincidence that Chao died mere weeks after her husband decided to suspend his investments in China for 18 months? Is it a coincidence that she died just 1 week after IDG Capital, which her husband's venture capital firm heavily invested in, was listed for having Chinese military ties? Maybe. But if all my time on this channel taught me anything, it's that when it comes to the CCP, there are rarely coincidences. Usually, they're severe whoopsie-daisies. Now, of course, Mitch McConnell has announced that he will step down as Republican Senate Minority Leader. McConnell gave no specific reason for the timing of his decision. He doesn't say much of anything these days. But according to AP News, McConnell did cite his sister-in-law's death as a moment that prompted introspection, adding, "The end of my contributions are closer than I'd prefer." That's enigmatic. McConnell also said, "I have many faults. Misunderstanding politics is not one of them." And the thing about politics is that coincidences are rarely just that, especially given all the shady ties the Chao family has. If it looks like murder, smells like murder, and tastes like murder, then quit smelling and licking that corpse. This is a crime scene. Something about Chao's death is not right. I'll tell you more after the break. Welcome back. Angela Chao's death has raised a lot of speculation that something sinister was behind it. And given her ties to China, it's easy to see why. Her father, James Chao, fled from the mainland to Taiwan in the late 1940s after the Chinese Civil War, and later to the US in 1958. He helped found the New York headquartered Foremost Group, a shipping company that hauls cargo such as iron ore and coal primarily to China. The same company owned a vessel that was caught carrying cocaine, which in turn led to McConnell earning the title Cocaine Mitch because of his ties to the Chao family. Strangely enough, McConnell's re-election campaign totally embraced the title. I guess Cocaine Mitch is a fitting nickname since turtles often have straws up their noses. Much of the company's success was thanks to Chao Sr. maintaining a lot of close ties with the Chinese mainland. He was particularly close with former Chinese leader Jiang Zemin, the same Jiang Zemin who launched a genocide on Falun Gong practitioners and was the head of a political faction locked in a constant power struggle against the current Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, even after Jiang's death. According to the New York Times, James Chao has for decades cultivated a close relationship with Jiang Zemin, a schoolmate from Shanghai who rose to become China's president. The relationship with Jiang certainly seems to have paid off for the Chaos. Over the years, Foremost Group was able to secure hundreds of millions of dollars in Chinese loans, business with Chinese shipyards, and charters with Chinese state-owned steelmakers. In turn, some of that money, and by some I mean millions of dollars, found its way into the bank accounts of McConnell and his wife via family donations from James Chao to his daughter, which is not at all a tit-for-tat for McConnell's political influence. But don't worry, I'm sure China has no influence whatsoever over the Chaos, even after flattering them with state propaganda, giving out nice portraits of them, and printing biographies of them. Why, I bet the CCP does that with all their friends, even the poor ones, like... Even if China was trying to sway the Chaos politically, I have faith that Elaine Chao was careful not to let China influence her, even when she mixed family business with government duties. Relax, it's totally normal to bring family to meetings with Chinese government officials. You've heard of take your daughter to work day? Why can't you also take your uncle, third cousin, and a guy you're not related to? I also have faith that Mitch McConnell is holding Chinese leaders accountable despite family financial ties. Yep, definitely. Angela Chao herself was especially well connected with China. She took the mantle of CEO of Foremost Group in 2018, but she also held a number of other roles, including member of the board of the Bank of China and vice chairman of the Council of China's Foreign Trade. She was even a director at the state-run China State Shipbuilding Corporation, the same corporation that builds ships for the Chinese Navy. Now, what kind of state-run corporation would allow a U.S. citizen to work anywhere near a military-industrial enterprise like that? Not even most ordinary CCP members could even dream of being in that position. China State Shipbuilding Corporation would either have to be very stupid or it must be pretty confident in Angela to not screw them over. So Angela Chao's got some pretty shady ties to China, but everything gets 10 times weirder when it comes to her death. The influential Chinese site Caixin Global put out this article about Angela's death. An earlier version of the article claimed that Angela was allegedly hit and killed by a drunk truck driver at an intersection, and that driver was arrested. This drunk driver story isn't what mainstream Western media reported, but for some reason, a whole bunch of Chinese articles repeated these claims. Why would Caixin dedicate an entire article to Angela Chao with shoddy details that sound like celebrity gossip. That type of thing is normally Caixin's cup of tea, since it normally focuses on things like Chinese macroeconomics. This would be like Forbes or the Wall Street Journal covering Sydney Sweeney's favorite cookie recipes. That type of useless drivel is usually found in less respectable news organizations, like CNN. Also, if you look at the date of Caixin's publication on Angela, you'll notice that it was originally published at around 5:53 p.m. local time on February 13th. That's a lot earlier than when the story hit mainstream American news outlets, which are around half a day behind China's time zone. How would Caixin get a scoop like that from America sooner than mainstream American media outlets? There are some more obscure English-speaking sites that reported on Angela Chao's death before the mainstream media. The earliest report that I could find comes from the suspicious Vietnamese Salon site. It stated on February 10th, a day before Angela's death. This article is the earliest I could find that claimed that Angela's death resulted from a speeding truck driver running a red light at an intersection. You'll notice that it too reports her death as having happened a day earlier than the initial fire report. I couldn't tell you who the author Mai Din is since the bio only links to this site. And the only thing I found when I searched his face was this. Yes, this is apparently Mai Din. I don't mean to judge a book by its cover, but I've never seen someone look more like a Jeff in my entire life. It's pretty strange, if I do say so myself. A columnist at the Epoch Times suggests that Caixin's coverage of Chao's death may have been a message to certain people in the Jiang faction and many wealthy elite. According to him, the Hong Kong head of the Bank of China, the founder of the Lenovo Group, and members of the now defunct Taishan Club, a chamber of commerce type group that dominated certain sectors of the Chinese economy and represented the wealthiest people in China, could have been some of the intended recipients of such a message. We don't know for sure, but given the Chao family's connections to the Jiang faction, it makes sense that there's some sort of political game at play. Stay tuned when more information comes out about it. Perhaps you'll see it on the people's favorite soap opera, General Hostilities. I'm sure something will develop because this is even more suspicious than every death on CSI. Seriously, procedural crime dramas are where it's at. Now, I've got another video I want to show you, but first, China Uncensored would not be possible without viewers like you. We rely on what I call our 50-cent army to keep the lights on and the show going. You can join the China Uncensored 50-cent army for as little as $1 per episode, and you can even set a monthly limit. So go to patreon.com/China Uncensored and sign up today. And as a thank you, I'll answer your questions at the end of these episodes. Today's question comes from Meaty Guy. Question: how are you able to keep CCP trolls out of the comment sections in your videos on YouTube? Ooh, an excellent question. I remember back in the day I used to get some pretty colorful CCP trolls on the channel. I still do, but overall, much less than I used to. Part of that, I think, is the audience of China Uncensored being so amazing and robust that you guys just drown them out with your comments. But a few years back, there was widespread coverage of Chinese trolls flooding social media. And pretty much all the social media companies responded by deleting these spam accounts. I think that went a long way in cleaning things up. I also think in general, the Communist Party has moved away from the tactic. They have much more sophisticated means of influencing Americans, like buying off politicians and business leaders. Not sure why I thought of that during this episode. Anyway, thank you for your long-time support and your question, Meaty Guy. And now, that video I want to show you. It's about why nationalism is a good thing, according to the hit new game Helldivers 2. I've been hiding conversations like that YouTube would consider too controversial in gaming content on my new show Deep Thoughts While Gaming. Check it out. And click that orange button to support China Uncensored on Patreon. We can't afford to make the show without you. All it takes is a couple of bucks a month. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.